If you're pouring your heart into your podcast, but still struggling to turn those listeners into paying clients, I've got something just for you. Imagine having a clear, simple plan to turn your listeners into buyers without relying on a huge audience or spending hours on social media. That's exactly what we'll create together in a podcast profit plan discovery call. During this free 20-minute call, I'll help you discover more opportunities for profit in your podcast and give you the next best step to turn your show into a client attracting machine. If I've got an offer that will help you expedite this process, then we can also discuss working together. Book your free podcast profit plan discovery call now by going to podcastingformoms.co/profit plan or by clicking the link in the show notes. I can't wait to chat with you. Welcome to Podcasting for Moms, the show for moms in business ready to start, grow, and scale a podcast that turns their listeners into buyers. I'm Jenny Soneson, a podcast strategist and fellow mom entrepreneur. You're in the right place if you want to learn how to start and grow a podcast that attracts your ideal clients and really does the heavy lifting for you when it comes to selling your offers, all while balancing life as a busy mom. Are you ready to create a podcast that grows your income, impact, and influence? Let's make podcasting work for you because as moms, we know how to get things done. All right, let's jump into the episode. All right, guys, welcome to the show. We have another podcast audit for you. Today, we're talking to Austen. So, Austen, tell us a little bit about yourself, your podcast, and who it's for.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jenny. So, my podcast is called Create and Consume, and it's a podcast all about what we make, watch, and buy in the era of digital content, and really having a place to kind of come together and just discuss topics related to social media, pop culture, fashion and beauty, shopping, all of those different things, kind of through the lens of just being someone who's grown up in the digital age. So, because I am a millennial, I am 30. My audience is primarily women ages like 25 to 40, I would say, many of whom seem to live in large US cities, according to my Spotify analytics. And my parents listen too, but they're in a different demographic. And yeah, so I started my podcast in May of last year. So I am about 11 months into my podcasting journey at the time we're doing this.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I love that. And it sounds like more of like a fun kind of podcast where you get to chronicle like your life and also add in some like tips and tricks and things like that too. But it sounds like it's more like not a passion project, but I guess it could be a passion project in a sense.
No, for sure. Yeah, definitely conversational, lifestyle-y. I want it to feel like you're on FaceTime with your friend if you're watching on YouTube, or like you're listening to your friend just while you're on mute, like folding laundry or running errands, because I've noticed that those are the kind of shows that I gravitate towards as well. And like there are certain podcasts where the hosts could literally be talking about anything and I'll listen because of them. And my hope is to kind of become that kind of cornerstone podcast host where people will be there kind of no matter what I'm talking about. And I think that, as you can see, if you scroll through my episodes, there have been episodes about things like, you know, me going through my career journey as a magazine editor and then pivoting into content creation, everything up to makeup application tips, my personal style journey. Next week's episode is going to be how to quit confidently because I've quit 2 jobs before. So stuff like that, but always coming back to, you know, social media, how things are perceived, and, you know, digital content creation too.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot you can do with that for sure because there's a lot of channels, there's a lot of platforms, there's a lot going on, there's a lot of changes always with those platforms. So I love that. That's really cool. So if I were to like wave a magic wand, what would you want to have achieved with your podcast in the next like 90 days, especially since we're recording this on April 1st, which marks the, first day of Q2, which is kind of cool.
I know it's always so exciting to think of quarterly goals. Like I'm a big goal planner in that sense. I have a whole Notion hub and like process of how I like to keep organized with things like that. But I think that for me personally, I knew that for the first full year of podcasting, I was likely going to need to do everything myself. And I think it's good to just like learn how to edit if you need to and learn, you know, how to fill in the descriptions and things like that and market it. I think at this point right now, I would love to continue to market my podcast in more creative ways. But I also think that I should, you know, hire a virtual assistant and come up with like a task list of the main things that I think they can help me with, because I've noticed I've gotten bogged down in the details of like
Yeah.
occasionally missing, oh, I didn't upload the reels from the episode for this week. So like I didn't promote it on short form. Like no wonder the views or the listens are a little down. And I think I would just like to continue to even slowly and incrementally build that engaged listenership. I think that I don't care how many people it is, but I like the idea that people are really looking forward to each episode each week and that it's in their weekly rotation and it's top of mind for them.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that sounds really helpful. Yeah. Cause I feel like sometimes you don't realize how many things you're doing with a podcast until you start doing it. You're like, you think about it when you first start, you're like, okay, I just need to record and edit and get it out there. But then, like, all the little micro tasks, like posting it to all the different channels and stuff like TikTok and Reels and all the different shorts and things like that. And even repurposing it to video can be a lot of steps because you don't think about that from the beginning. And then you get in and you're like, wow, this is a lot. So,
Oh my
yeah, I
gosh,
totally
yes.
understand like some things slipping through the cracks and whatnot. So I think that's a really great goal of having someone to assist you. And I know it can be really hard to market podcasts because it's a little different. Like, on Instagram, when you're sharing the reels or any of those platforms, it's hard to get people to actually leave the platform. Is that
Mhm.
something you're experiencing too?
Oh, yeah, and I think that's something I experience in just content creation in general, and
Yeah.
for context, I'm a self-employed creator and have been for the last 4 years.
Uh-huh.
So, always kind of thinking through about, like, what is the best return on investment of clicks and things like that. Most of traffic to, like, my blog and my YouTube channel and my email newsletter is not coming from Instagram and TikTok.
Mhm.
Maybe it's coming from, like, a freebie mentioned in a blog post or
Mhm.
a download mentioned in YouTube. And that's one of the reasons I love podcasting and long form content is because I feel like it's the way to build that deeper connection
Yeah.
with someone and to not be limited to, 90 seconds or
Mhm.
240 characters or whatever the case is, because, we love nuance around here. I suspect you do too as a podcaster.
Yeah, it could be hard to get people to kind of leave places or to, go to another platform or even just, I don't know, just even see it, the algorithms
And even
sometimes
give it a
not.
try, because
Yeah,
I don't know about you,
exactly.
but like in terms of the podcasts I listen to, like I have my core favorites, and it takes a
Mhm.
lot to add someone new to the weekly
Yeah.
rotation.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I'm the same way. I kind of keep with my same ones, especially as I'm doing this work like on a day-to-day basis. It's hard to add more than my current 2 to 3 because I'm already listening to my clients' podcasts too. So it's hard to add to your rotation. We get stuck in our habits, so it can be hard
Mm.
to break through the habit. So can you tell me a little bit about like what you're doing currently to market your podcast? So I just don't want to make sure that I'm not giving you like ideas you're already doing.
Totally. And feel free to tell me if any of this like doesn't sound right to you. But I think one of the reasons it took me such a long time to start a podcast, like I started a blog in 2012, YouTube in 2017. I knew that when I started with a podcast, I did want to do video. And I
Mhm.
also wanted to make sure that I was publishing like some kind of blog post recap to go along
Yes.
with each episode as well. So until I had the bandwidth to do that, I didn't want to get started. So that hence me starting last year. So when I publish an episode, obviously it goes out on Spotify, Apple, all the places.
Mhm.
I will do an Instagram story on the podcast account with a link to listen on Spotify. If I
Okay.
were being more thoughtful, I would also link out like Spotify, Apple, and YouTube, or maybe find one common link for all three. And then I take like the blog post graphic that I make in Canva and I go to like Threads, Twitter, and LinkedIn with the new
Okay.
episode link. And like I said, I do publish a blog post for each episode. And
Mhm.
I'm using AI tools a lot to help me with
Yeah.
this right now since I am doing it solo. So for the blog post, I give my podcast outline to ChatGPT
Mhm.
and ask it to turn it into a blog post. And then I go through and make it make sense and be in my
Yeah.
voice, etc. And then I'm using Opus Clip to create
Mhm.
little snippets of my podcast. I absolutely love that tool
Me too.
because right now, and I would love to be pulling more because it gives me like 20 or 30 for every
Mhm.
single long form video I upload.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm just picking the best two for each
Mhm.
episode and using those on Instagram, TikTok, and then YouTube Shorts. And I
Okay.
have separate socials for everything for the podcast.
Mhm. Okay. Okay, cool. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So you're doing a lot of repurposing, it seems like. But you're saying you might want to even do more if obviously it's pulling those 20 clips. I mean, obviously not all 20 of them are great because sometimes I know I use Opus clips for my clients too and myself, and it pulls things I'm like, they're not really that compelling. Like, cool,
Yeah.
thanks for it's like they're trying to meet the quota of like pulling 15 to 20 clips or whatever. But are you wanting to like add more repurposing with those episodes, like getting more bang out of the episodes? Are like, is that something? It's kind of sounded like that's what you were alluding to.
Yeah, I think I would love to like do a little more with what I already have if possible, but I also really want to like treat it a little more the way I treat my other social accounts and
Mm,
continue to create like other fun original content for those socials. So like
hmm.
I don't know, like if the episode this week was about quitting or something, maybe I could do like a couple of cute memes with like text overlay, like
Hmm.
something that feels shareable or something that people want to comment on because I really want to build a community around the podcast. I would like to try, if possible, to avoid being the manager of a Facebook group, just because in my previous experience, even as a member, sometimes that gets a little chaotic for podcast communities of a couple that I'm in. Although
Yeah.
maybe a Facebook group would be a great thing for me to do. But I even like the idea of like on Instagram, you know, having a carousel of memes like that. Even
Hmm.
something like, yay, it's Friday, or like, oh, it's Monday. Like anything that is kind of for my audience, even if it's not directly related to the podcast, to bring people into the account and like give them a space to comment or share things with friends. And then like maybe just by osmosis also start listening to some of the reels and maybe get into
Yeah.
the episodes. And I also think that kind of same content could do well on Pinterest potentially to, again,
Hmm.
also just like help drive awareness and community and kind of build an audience, even if it's not directly converting like immediately to new listeners, to at
Yeah.
least like get people in the world and, you know, see cute like pink and purple or kind of the podcast color graphics and things like that. So, but what do you think of that idea?
No, I think that's really good. Like, that is a lot more than most people do with their podcast. So I think you're really on the right track. I think it's just, allocating those resources, whether it's you or someone to help you to make that happen. Cause yeah, I love the idea of like adding some more, not just podcast clips, but things are like related to the episode or even like, like if you talking about quitting your job, you could even have like little mini series, like in videos that like aren't necessarily pulled from the episode, but just kind of like more engaging and, that kind of thing. I think you're really on the right track there. Another thing that I always love to recommend, typically for like quote unquote business owners, but I feel like it could be beneficial for you too. If you know anyone in the space that has like a similar show to yours that's conversational and kind of like fun and pop culture, maybe you guys could do some kind of like swap or something where you be on their show, they be on your show, that kind of thing. I think that could be fun to do that cross promotion. Or another thing that we've been experimenting with some of our clients recently is like maybe you're not on their show or they're not on your show because it looks like your show is solo, which is totally fine. But doing like a little push at the beginning, like they promote their show on your show at the beginning, like they come on and say, if you love Austen's podcast, you'll probably love mine too, kind of thing. And then you do the same thing on their show at the beginning. So it's like a little cross promotion. Their audience is hearing about you, your audience is hearing about them, and you're not having to go on a podcast. You could do both too, but that's something I've seen and it works pretty well. I don't know. I'm a huge proponent of podcast guesting. It's like my favorite way to grow your show because it's like people are already in the app. So it's so much easier to like make them go to another show versus like taking them from Instagram to another platform like Apple Podcast or Spotify or something. So that's kind of always my first recommendation. I know you said like it's kind of hard to grow from like search engine optimization and stuff because you do have so many different topics, but I do feel like looking at your show, you could add a little bit of keywords to your name because your name is just create and consume, right? Like that's not really something people are going to type in the search bar. So even just adding like a little tagline like create and consume and then putting like a little dash or like one of those like stop. I don't know. I call it like a stop mark, but I don't know what it's
Vertical
called.
line.
But yeah, the little vertical line. Yeah. And like writing like, I don't know, you could put a bunch of different keywords there. And then whenever people would type in like that keyword into their search engine on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, then your show is more likely to come up. So it doesn't need to be anything like crazy, but like for me, like I know for my show, it's called well, this one's called Podcasting for Moms, but one of my other shows I have is called Moms Make Money. And then, like the keyword mom is in the title, but I also add like additional keywords like after that little vertical line so that people, if they're looking up like, it's mostly for service providers. So like starting a service-based business as a mom or something. So it says like, you know, tips for sustainable service or something like that. Something like sustainable service provider. So service providers like searchable, sustainable, searchable. things like that. So just kind of adding those to your name can be really beneficial. You can also add keywords to your host name. So after your name, where it says Austen, you could add another line and just say like, add some more keywords, whatever your like title is, not like a title, but just something a little that can like, if people look that up, they could find it too. Like mine says like business mentor for moms or something like that. It doesn't need to be anything crazy, but that's another place to add the keywords. Same within your bio. I see you have or not bio, but your podcast description, you have a couple of keywords in there. But I always like to add a section that's like what you can expect or questions you can get answered or something. And then just like list out some like questions, like where you said like from her previous career as a magazine editor in NYC, you could pull stuff from that, like career advice for pivoting or something like that. Because you said you're having an episode coming up or career advice for quitting, how to quit your job like gracefully or something like that. Like just things like that. Because if people are searching that, then your episode will pop up.
Okay,
Your
that's
show
good
in
to know
general.
because that definitely has not been updated since I launched the show. So
Yeah, and that's
now
really
that
normal.
I kind of know more about what the show is about myself, even too, that's such a
Well,
good point.
exactly. It's hard when you're first starting out and you're like, I don't really know where this is going. Like for kind of like more of a lifestyle show, it's hard to kind of pick and choose like what you should put there. Because for me, it was really easy because it's like podcasting for moms. So it's like, okay, I'm talking about podcasting tips, sustainable tips to help you grow your show in part-time hours kind of thing. But yeah, I think that could be elaborated on. And that's another great place for keywords. And then your like episode titles as well. Like, how to spread
Yeah, I wanted
your
to.
life. That's fun. Influencer brand deals really work. That's fun. Like that's influencer brand deals. That's a keyword. You could even add like influencer marketing or brand deals or other words in the like the episode descriptions as well too.
Yeah, I wanted to ask what you think about the titles because so long story short, on YouTube for a long time was doing a lot more like specific content creation tips content and I felt like I
Mm.
just became this like vessel for information and I was no longer a person and like didn't have a personality because I was so focused on like these are the videos YouTube likes, this is how I'm growing, this
Yeah.
is what people are subscribing for and I felt like I totally lost my personality along the way. So I really wanted to with the podcast try to like maintain my own voice as much as possible.
Totally.
But I totally understand the need for like a discoverable keyword potentially for
Mhm.
titles and SEO and stuff like that. I don't want to change my voice too much, but
Yeah,
like, do you
of
think
course.
I was going to ask if you thought some of these titles were okay at least, or like had a little bit of search
Yeah,
credibility?
no, there's
Because
definitely some here that have like some more searchability than others, like the retail job that launched my fashion career. If someone's typing in fashion career, like yours can come up. Long form content is a keyword, tech startup is a keyword, influencer brand deals. Like there's definitely some that are like more keyword friendly than others. Obviously, the one you posted like 5 days ago, a very niche game of would you rather, like no one's really gonna look that up, but like they
totally.
could find other things and then really like you and then keep going. So I think the thing with yours would be like the things that can be keywordified should be, because if they find that episode and they're like, oh, I really like this Austen girl, like let's see what else she's talking about, and then they can go and on that journey and like really start to learn more about you and what you have to offer, not just like everything being tips and tricks. It can be like, oh, I actually like her as a person. Like, I want to learn more about her as a person versus just these great content tips that she gave me or whatever you're sharing about in the episode. So I
Hmm.
think that can be really useful as well because, there is a place for lifestyle type podcasts. They're harder to grow, no lie, because it's a little more like, it's not as easy to just come up with keywords for every episode, but I think there's a place for them. I mean, obviously there's podcasts like The Toast and those kinds of podcasts that people listen to religiously. So there's definitely a place for them. They're just a little bit more nuanced to kind of figure out how to grow because yeah, you're right. The community element will be big for you, like figuring out how to nurture that community. And I agree, you don't really need a Facebook group, but you need something. You need somewhere to put someone because as it stands with podcasting, you don't really know who's listening. And you might know where they're tuning in from. Like your analyst can provide that information, but you don't know who it is unless they reach out and say, hey, I love this episode. It's really great. Right.
Hmm.
Or if you have like an email list and they join that and then you can kind of see, oh, cool, they joined from the podcast. You put a name to a face. So you need some sort of community, especially with this type of podcast, because I feel like otherwise it kind of feels like you might be talking into the void, even if you're only seeing like, even if it's only like 50 to 100 downloads per episode. I think that's totally fine, but you need to find a way to connect with those people. And I think community in this case would be a really great thing, because I don't always recommend that to people, because it's just like, no, that's just another thing for you to manage, another thing for you to get free content on. But in this case, it's like, it wouldn't really be free content. It would just be like a community where people are like asking questions, and like the community is driven by the people in the community. I'm in some like communities like that. Like there's a podcast called like Mom Chat or something like that. And they literally just two ladies get on and they chat just about motherhood and life and stuff. And then the
Mhm.
people in the community, they join the Facebook group. It doesn't need to be a Facebook group, but they join the Facebook group, and then they just, it's very community led. Like the people in the community will ask questions, and it's not always the host responding. Like they will sometimes, but like the people in the community are like jumping on, like, people like, oh, what's the best baby carrier, or how do you adjust to being a mom of two, or something like that. And the community will answer. So I think that could be a really good thing for you too, is like really building up that community, whether it's like getting people on your email list, or having like a Slack channel, or a Facebook group, or whatever you decide to do. I think that can be really, really big for you, for sure.
I love that idea. And, on the Instagram, like if you scroll back for like the first couple of episodes, at first I was doing 4 posts for each episode. And one of
Mm,
them was called Create and Consume, because in each episode, I also say, like, here's what I'm creating this week and here's what I'm consuming,
mm,
because I'm
mhm,
always doing both. So I also ask back, like, you can tell me what you're creating and consuming if you like comment on the Instagram, or like,
mhm.
I know there are Spotify comments. I've gotten one so far in the entire year of podcasting. I suspect they're not very active. But even for anyone who's watching on YouTube, that's obviously like an easy place to leave a comment. So I just had to cut that because of my bandwidth. But even
Mhm.
that could be like a simple post to come back in, like, Instagram stories and a question box, even if it's not the
Yeah.
most engaging, like, feed post or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. And like once you feel like you're getting enough momentum from that, like obviously you don't want to go just create a community for two people. But like once you feel like you're getting enough momentum, then you can kind of pull them and be like, hey, like, is this something you'd be interested in? Kind of thing. Like the people that are actually actively engaging and stuff, and in your DMs. Cause I feel like that's, that's where you start. And then from there, you can decide if you actually want to create a physical community, or it's just like the sense of community on the Instagram or wherever you hang out. You just have to pick that central place where people are going to interact. Because yeah, otherwise it's like you're kind of talking to the void. You're like, who's actually listening? Like, great,
But
I see this number, but like that doesn't really mean anything at the end of the day. So
yeah, can I go back and ask a quick question about
yeah.
guests?
Uh-huh.
I was curious. I mean, well, I guess there's two questions. Like, one, how big should your podcast be to like make it worth it, I would say, for a guest to come on? Because obviously I'm still in the growing phase. Like, if you think there's a download metric. And then also, do you know podcasts that like do solo episodes and guest episodes? Because I feel like I would be bringing on just a small number of guests here and there, but I don't want to throw people off if they're used to a solo show, or, I would love to have guests on, but I'm curious, like, what you think about when you do have guests on versus like solo episodes.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, I've done both. Like I've done, right now I'm in my solo era, because finding time to film with guests and stuff has been a little bit of a challenge. But like this summer I'm gonna have a lot of guest episodes, because I'm gonna be busier and not want to film. I want to pre-record. So I think it can be great. Like in all things, you can just communicate to your people like, hey, I'm gonna be bringing on like one guest episode a month, or one a quarter, or whatever cadence you decide on is totally fine. I think people would probably enjoy it. You're still there. It's not like the guest is taking over and you're not talking. So they still get that element of you, but like it kind of takes the pressure off. And like you can have some really powerful conversations with guests too. Like, I mean, I always like to come at it with like a, here's what I would like to talk about kind of thing, to kind of give them, so they're not just like coming on and you're like, oh, I don't know what we're gonna cover. Like give them
Hmm.
some kind of talking points rather, or whatever like you want to cover. Like if you had something that you just really wanted to know, and if it's something you want to learn, your audience probably wants to learn it too. So, and in terms of like download milestones, I don't think it really matters, honestly. Like one of the things that my company does is we pitch on behalf of other people, and most of the time people aren't saying, oh, how many downloads does she have, like it's kind of like not kosher to do. So most people will not, like, they don't care. I feel like, if you build a good relationship with them before you pitch them to be on your show, they're most likely gonna say no. I feel like it's easier to get people to be on your show and say yes to being on your show, no matter the size, versus like pitching to be on someone else's show, if that makes sense. Because
Mm,
like
okay.
we've had people who had pretty small audiences that everyone's like, woo, sure, I'll be on your show. Like that's exposure for me, right? So I feel like it doesn't matter as much. There's not really like a download milestone or anything. And if you want to get your feet wet with it too, you can always start with people that you already are close with or friends with that you think could benefit too. That's a much easier ask. And then from there, it gets easier to ask people because it's like you're asking someone who you already know versus like someone like a cold ask or cold outreach rather. So
Totally. Yeah, because I've had a few friends like reach out and be like, "Oh, I would be a guest on your show." And I'm like, okay." Like I don't know who exactly is listening right now, but like, just in the early days of like building it up, it's a little imposter syndrome-y to be like, "Oh my God, okay." Like I hope you're not
yeah.
expecting this to like make you go viral or anything, but I would love to talk
Right,
to
right.
you.
But like they can help promote the show too. Like, I mean, I never suggest that like having people on your show being your main promo strategy because like that's just not gonna work. Especially if they talk about this topic on other lots of other shows. It's like, okay, you can't rely on them to promote the episode, right? I mean, it's great and it's wonderful when they do, but that can't be your main marketing strategy for the show. So yeah, I think it can be really great though, because like when they do promote or it's nice because you're getting in front of people that follow them and things like that. So
And I would also love to like make it a little more worth their while. And like I'm in Hoboken right outside of New York
mm,
City. So like if I can rent a podcast studio where like we're getting filmed in 4K, like we get
yeah.
beautiful clips and stuff that we can both use. Like I feel like that makes it so much easier for them to want to share stuff like that. If it's like, oh, they're in the
Yeah.
studio, like it looks
Yeah.
great. That's like an investment I hope to like be able to make later, maybe this year or like early next year or something like that. And again, that's also why I'm like, when I'm on my own, like I can podcast from my apartment. That's nice and easy. But like, yeah, for a guest, I feel like I would try to elevate it a bit more or like do something like that. So
Right. Especially with the video element. I feel like, like most people when they are watching a podcast, they need something a little more stimulating than just like two talking heads on the screen. So having them in person can be, more exciting for your viewers as well. For
yeah.
audio, it doesn't really matter, but if you're using both video and audio, yeah, you definitely need a little bit more visual interest to keep people engaged.
Totally. And that's also, I think, a little bit of the relief of doing a bit more of a lifestyle chatty podcast for me, too, is like, I don't need to have like stats on the screen. I don't need to be like, here's this example of how this was, because that's my YouTube channel. Like, I could
Yeah.
do that more so on YouTube where it's more visual if I want to. Whereas for the
Mhm.
podcast, people are watching on my YouTube channel. I assume they're putting it like on their TV while they're doing, cleaning the kitchen or stuff like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, how are you feeling about that? Does that feel good? Does that feel like a good next step to kind of take and see where we can go from here?
I think so. I think also, like I said, even hiring a virtual assistant to make sure like the key, like important things are checked off. Like, yes, these clips have been scheduled to YouTube
Hmm.
Shorts. Like, yes, the blog post episode to go with this is scheduled. Like,
Yeah.
then it might give me a little extra breathing room to be like, oh, what could be a cute like thing to post on Instagram
Right.
this
You
week
have
or like
more
fun
brain
memes to
space
make.
because you're not like, oh, I need to schedule this here and schedule this there and write this caption, like little things like that. Like, if you're still like kind of in the weeds with like editing and things like that, like, sure, that does take a bit of time, but just like even just the 10-15 minutes that it takes to like schedule things for the whole week, that's like 10-15 minutes of your day back that you could think about like more creative and use that creative brain more versus like being in the weeds. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm also getting some new branding photos taken next month. So I'm also hoping like my website will look a little bit like fresher and things
fun.
like that. And
I think you could also refresh your cover art too. Like nothing is wrong with it, but like I feel like like even if you just put like if you use your branding photos, you could put your picture on it too, and
yeah,
kind of
because
like
I'm not in it right now.
yeah. Right now, it's just kind of like it's pretty, but it's just like who is this person? If you look
Hmm.
at it, and like that's the first thing that people see is they see your cover art and they're like, am I gonna hit play? Like the cover is the first thing, and then they look at the description before they decide. Okay, and then they look at the titles. They're like, oh, this sounds interesting. It's like if your cover art doesn't pass the test, and then your description doesn't pass the test, then they don't move on to the third step of like actually hitting play on one of your episodes. So I think kind of optimizing those things will definitely help like more people actually like when they stumble upon it, it's like, okay, cool. They're gonna decide this is the show for them kind of thing. So
Yeah. And also recognize me, hopefully, because I have like, I don't have a huge audience, but I've been a content creator for many
yeah,
years and I do
yeah.
have a following on Instagram and YouTube and stuff. So at least for people to even be like, oh, yeah, this is the person from
Yeah, like because sometimes seeing a
Uber.
name, they're like, that sounds kind of familiar, but like I'm not sure. So like having a picture with your name too, it helps like really jog people's memory because some people can remember a name and other people are better with like a face and a name.
Totally.
Awesome. Well, if you guys want to get your own audit and you want your own kind of strategy session with me, make sure to head to savvypodcastaudit.com to book your audit today. And thank you so much, Austen, for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Jenny. This was really fun and helpful.
Thank you for tuning into Podcasting for Moms. I hope today's episode gave you the tools and inspiration you need to make your podcast work smarter, not harder. If you love what you heard, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. It means the world and helps other moms in business find the show. For more tips, resources, and support, head to podcastingformoms.co. Remember, you're not just building a podcast, you're building your legacy. Until next time, friends.